I want to talk about warmongers and how they work, and some of the stuff about them that's like a pattern that keeps repeating. Well, I was listening to Celente, and he was talking about that Pompeo had gone and had conference with Brazilian and Argentinian and Colombian despots that they have themselves installed, and they were trying to get together to overthrow the another country's government, Venezuela. So it's like, well, in this whole scene, it seemed that the Pompeo was just, you know, going and encouraging these despots with money and weapons and future support to go in and do a job for them. Just like if you had a very dirty and difficult job, and you were willing to pay a little extra money to like a staffing agency or temp agency to get the job done, but you didn't really want to have your own personnel because they, or God forbid, they might get their butt shot, or they get their heads blown off, and then who will pay for all the insurance and lawsuits? So seems that this is a pattern with countries like United States and Israel and even Saudi Arabia to try to outsource their violence, to get other countries to fight with each other, instigate, in return for monetary rewards and weapons. But this wasn't the case when the U.S. was fighting against the Koreans. They actually had to send their own people, their own military personnel to the war zone. And then when Trump started negotiating with Kim Jong-un, I think the motivation for making some kind of verbal agreements of peace was that he knew that if the hostilities really erupted, that there was a real war, then there would be very high casualty rates of 30,000 American soldiers in the combat zone. So despite all the rhetorics and all the BS and hey, we're gonna do this and that, the cold fact that there will be American casualties, significant American casualties, and also that he might lose the election in 2020, which he's gonna lose anyhow because of the Wall Street crash and the ensuing riots that are gonna engulf United States, because all these wonderful white male people like him that voted for him, they've been riding the high valuation of the stock market, and now that their wealth is jack shit, then the entitlement, the instinct is going to kick in. God, I think that the United States is going to publish some kind of worthless bond. They might call it like a national bond. Or, oh my God, you're going to get all this money. All you have to do is to calm down and wait about 20 years, and you're going to get this shitload of worthless dollars. Then, all we want is I'm sorry, but there is a strategy if you're one of these countries that the United States continuously threaten or once in a while sends in a plane or two to bomb, is to draw the United States actual personnel, actual military, to get into the conflict and shoot them down, like shoot, bomb the aircraft carriers, or attack the bases itself where these people are, these wonderful, wonderful U.S. citizens and personnel that start all these wars or the hire the ISIS, where these guys are, and just grab them first, then there will be the bargaining chip to get the actual peace and get these assholes off our backs. So I mean, then also that shows the strategy that many people in the U.S. Government and in present administration or before, they know how to start wars, how to instigate, make sanctions, finance Baasis and Salafis and Wahhabis and give weapons and you show support. But underlying all of that is that we all know that they're not going to put their own butts on the line. They could say this shit all day long, but they will not be sending troops. They will not participate. And if they use nukes, then the nukes will be used against them. The same goes with Israel. Israel has been giving all these weapons and money to ISIS, and they were completely defeated. Now the troubles are banging on Israel's door or coming inside. Then they are faced with the big problem is that many Israelis and Americans who are in the military, they are white. They have a good life and family. They're very well fed, and they feel entitled to that the government will do everything in its powers to rescue them or bring them around, pamper them, give them therapy afterwards. But the reality of warfare in our time is that you have to put your own butt on the line, and it might get shot. I think the strategy that the Iranian government pursues is if the hostilities erupt, is to actually attack the U.S. bases around the Middle East, in like Dubai or Qatar or Saudi itself, actually attack mainland or whatever the Israelis call mainland with rockets and drones, and the casualty rate, I think, will be quickly convince these people to get out of Middle East, go away, and don't come back. Recently Trump withdraw 2,000 U.S. troops from Israel. So I guess they know something is brewing up and they don't want to be in the crossfire. And then I think that this trend will continue and they will pull out troops from Iraq and Afghanistan. This is great news, but hey, somebody's got a lot of karma, and this has been going on for 30 since World War II. The U.S. is going around all these different places and bombing them, sometimes overthrow the government and making the bases here and there. And so what if they pull out? There's always the danger of them returning, or there is a lot of danger of revenge, like a foreign government that had lost a great deal might just pull the trigger, like a false flag. Or I was reading this book. Actually, I'm getting the audio book. I think it's called 1 second. It's like when 1 second after EMP goes off and devastates entire region, because all the electronics dies out, and then it's a kind of a slow death. Another thing that I think there will be a military defeat like in many prophecies of these Western powers, is that they are very fragile. Their economy and their own persons in their bodies. Uh, Almost everything that I see around me that I touch or use is made elsewhere. It's made in China. It's made in Vietnam. It's made in Korea. Um, their money is not really earned. It's really printed and given to them in all kinds of entitlements, and also the many whites, including the European Jews that made Israel, they have very low reproductive rates. It's close to what the Germans have. They don't replace their population. If there is more population, is usually population that came from elsewhere. For example, in Germany, if there is an increase in the number of people there, is usually foreigners, either European foreigners, other European foreigners, or like completely from elsewhere, Middle East or Turkey, or I think there is East European immigration into Britain and Germany, and they look close to the Germans, and they are able to masquerade as Germans. And usually when that happens, then the person that came in, it acquires economic and social standing comparable to Germans to some extent. And I've seen this happen with the Iranians, because the Iranians, our race is a little bit close, is like a bit more white. Many Persians or Fars, they are have very white skin, so they could easily like masquerade as Americans or white Americans. I've seen Iranians that I thought this guy is the American guy, and he opened his mouth and I knew he's Iranian. So this goes on, but when a war happens, these other populations, they're not going to come in and fight a bloody war that somebody in Washington started. I don't know. Well, I read in the paper that the Saudis, because they lost in Yemen, and the Yemenis are kicking their ass, and also with drones and rockets are hitting them, that they are resorting to hiring, I don't know what country, it was an African country, child soldiers or boy soldiers, like teenagers come in, and they hire them like they would hire ISIS. Well, ISIS is, I think it's composed of the low income or, places in Saudi Arabia or Egypt where people are very underpaid, or there is no prospect for any kind of social movement. So they hire them and they unleash them into like Syria or Pakistan or Iran. Well, if a country like Iran, after receiving a blow, came back and gave a blowback, well, the Iranians, they won't go after, like, the most impoverished parts of Saudi Arabia. I would hit the Saudi clan itself. I would kill them first. Then I look around to see if there's other parts of their military I want to kill off. So I mean that's the scenario that would play out with Israel or with the United States. Their own personnel will get nabbed first. Then let's see who else is dancing with their tune, or we'll grab them and see if we want them at all, or we just want to keep them in jail for a month and then kick them out, something like that. Um, this is a strategy to deal with this shit that has gone on for many years. Is to militarily, not through individual or not through terrorism, but militarily target these countries' military or personnel, remove them, whatever their politicians say, or you can say what you want, but on the field there is no winning and no tomorrow. Well, I kind of sit and speculate about this stuff because I came here 1977. Since that time and shortly after the revolution, there has been nothing coming out of the American government or their politicians except threats, instigating for war, helping Baathis and Saudis, and making statements, sending aircraft carriers, just an endless supply of threats and provocations. And on top of all of that, there is all these sanctions and threats, even to the companies that do business with foreigners. It's sickening. It has been going on for a very long time. I kind of have a sense that it would come to an end, U.S. needs a military defeat to exit this worldview. Well, thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and also please leave comments.